Hey guys, how's it going? It's AP Derek. Welcome back to the channel. PlayStation 5 right around the corner. I absolutely cannot wait to dig in. And one of the games that I am most looking forward to is Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales. It's going to be one of the launch titles, and we're starting to see a lot of these. A lot of these publications are actually starting to get to demo stuff, try them out, get a little bit of hands-on approach and stuff. And we're seeing a lot of interesting compliments and results in regards to this. And one thing that all of us are curious about is this ray tracing feature that the PlayStation 5 is going to have. So I'm going to look at an article on Eurogamer.net where they got to take a closer look at PlayStation 5's ray tracing and Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. Before I begin the article though, if this is your first time coming to the channel, be sure to hit that red subscription button down there and click the bell notifications so you don't miss any PlayStation 5 headlines that I'll be keeping up with for you guys to divulge in throughout your day. So let's go ahead and read this. It says a closer look at PlayStation 5 ray tracing in Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, how a key Sony first-party developer is using the bleeding edge tech. So this goes on to say we're finally getting to see more of the launch wave of PlayStation 5 titles, with Insomniac revealing a first look at hardware-accelerated ray tracing effects in Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. A huge improvement is clearly evident in reflections from the tallest skyscraper to the smallest puddle, which is pretty neat. Goes on to say, but bafflingly, the reveal was met with some vitriol on social media. Artifacts and compromises were highlighted, with some even suggesting that we weren't seeing ray tracing at all. So it's been pretty divisive here. People are kind of in the middle. Of course, there's always going to be people being pessimistic towards stuff. No matter what you do, you're not always going to make everybody happy. It says the reality is clear though. Hardware RT is an emerging feature on brand new consoles developers are just getting to know. It's computationally expensive, so compromises are inevitable, and what we're seeing here is very impressive stacked up against similar hybrid RT implementations seen in the PC space. So in other words, it's still new in the grand scheme of consoles. You know, we're seeing brand new launch titles using this feature on the PlayStation 5, and it's going to be a little spotty when you first get these first titles. You're not going to see the full potential, especially because developers are still figuring it out and stuff. And then not to mention, Spider-Man is going to be a remaster of a PlayStation 4 game, so I don't know. I'm going to give it a little bit of leeway on that. So it says in terms of Marvel Spider-Man on PS5, there's two rendering modes. A 4K quality mode pegged at 30 frames per second alongside a 60 frames per second performance mode. The former shows obvious RT reflections, but ray-traced ambient occlusion is also muted for inclusion. Okay, so this is harder to identify in screenshots or in videos, but in general, ambient occlusion adds shadows into scenes to simulate the darker effect in nooks and crannies where light bounce is more muted. So it's a workaround. From what we can tell from the release footage, the 60 frames per second performance mode sticks with the screen space reflection seen in Spider-Man on PS4. The key limitation being that only detail in the camera view can be reflected, leading to many visual discontinuities. Skyscraper reflections drop back to much rougher approximations based on captured cube maps that change according to height. So it seems that there's certain limitations as far as reflections go in certain areas and stuff based on the camera view and stuff like that, and cube maps, captured cube maps. So sounds pretty technologically challenging here for some developers and stuff, and it's to be expected. Again, it's brand new. So it says RT is a revolutionary improvement here, but some people don't seem to be impressed. Again, you can't make everybody happy. It's true that the resolution of the RT reflections is lower, perhaps quarter resolution compared to the main image. Others weren't impressed that certain objects seen on screen aren't represented in the reflections, leading to suggestions that what we're seeing can't be ray tracing. Meanwhile, the leaves and trees appear much reduced, while reflections also miss some shadows. As I see it, all these characteristics make a lot of sense and unsurprising, What we're seeing in Spider-Man is a simple result of the fact that RT has multiple performance-sensitive steps and developers have a limited rendering budget for ray tracing. So, just what I said here. Some developers just can't implement ray tracing because of budget, funding, maybe inexperience, maybe they're still learning the software. There's a lot of issues here. So this person goes on to give details saying the first step is that RT reflections are based on light that can be coming from any directions, from areas not rendered on screen, and can be very far away. So it says already the performance implications are building up. The game needs to generate an easily readable version of the game scene to test ray tracing against. The larger and more detailed it is, the more GPU time is required to generate it. So that makes sense. Second step is actual ray tracing, where rays are shot into the structure defined in the first step to accurately map collisions against geometry. All the objects in the game scene have multiple invisible boxes of increasing size around them. So this is where you start to get techie when it comes to development and stuff like that. So it says the rays shot into the scene move through the boxes until they hit one that contains geometry. The more rays, the more collisions. The more detailed the geometry, the longer the process takes. It's a step that's accelerated via hardware. So this is with the hardware acceleration stuff that the PlayStation 5 is going to be incorporating. And that says the next step is shading pixels where a hit was registered. Simply put, this means shading the hit or choosing the color for a pixel, like painting the glass side of a skyscraper accurately, for example. More hits there are to shade, or the more complex the shading is, the longer it takes for the GPU to complete. So that makes sense. So it says because ray count's limited, the end result looks very noisy, cleanup's required, which leads to the final step where the reflections denoised. Smart algorithms are used to fill in the blanks, giving a more convincing. So it's pretty high tech. I mean, implemented correctly, ray tracing is going to look awesome. It's a neat little feature. They're saying even with hardware acceleration on the ray tracing step, it's still stressful on the GPU, and compromises are required. So that says Spider-Man's reflections are of lower resolution because it cuts down the ray count dramatically. If you heard that, comment down below. Ray count. It says giving a huge speed up to the video process. So there's a video here that is implemented with some things from like Ghost Runner and a couple other things. So basically, you know, it's interesting to say, they go on to say, you know, with the early days of ray tracing, there's going to be a lot of stuff. Implement different variations of implementing the technology, people going on. You could go ahead and read the rest of this article. It's mostly opinionated and opinion based towards the end, but I mean, Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales at the end of the day is still the beginning of this being implemented on consoles. So while it might look spotty, fair warning, it's not going to be the end. I mean, I'd venture to say the next few batches of games that are being developed and made that aren't launch titles are going to look immensely better. They're going to use the ray tracing a gajillion times better, and everything will be implemented perfectly. So I'm actually looking forward to this. It was a nice little read, a nice little insight on ray tracing and stuff like that. Again, guys, I appreciate all the support that you guys have been providing towards the channel recent weeks. We're almost at 71,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscription button, click the like. It'll help get this video out in the algorithm. And stay tuned for more updates on PlayStation 5 stuff. I'll see you guys on the next one. Y'all have a great day. Peace out.